Today you will meet two volunteer members of a local alternative radio station that has been broadcasting for 37 years plus. And you will learn perhaps why an alternative radio station has a lot more to offer you than you can possibly imagine. My name is Bill Mannion. I'll be your host for this edition of The Better Part. Please stay tuned.
Welcome to The Better Part, a program that encompasses a diverse spectrum of topics important to our community, which we hope will both inform and entertain you. We invite you to sit back and enjoy the program.
Today I'd like you to meet our two guests, Sharon McRae, Jim Malley. They're both the two volunteers that I promised you that are coming into the studio to talk about KKUP as an alternative radio station. Sharon, can you tell our viewers what the difference is between an alternative radio station and a mainstream radio station?
When I turn on KKUP, I never know what I'm going to get. I mean, you can have blues or jazz or talk radio, programs about health, our show that Jim and I do, the Old Time Farm and Garden Show. In the afternoons, my boss gets in my car and there's old-time radio shows that are being replayed. And so what I really like about the alternative radio is there's something there for everybody. It's not just one venue or one genre, it's the works.
So you in essence, your listeners, we say viewers in the video, but your listeners have that surprise type of thing that occurs.
Well, they can go online and see what the programming is, and there's certainly people that like to follow, you know, particular shows.
For example, yeah, you have your KKUP schedule. I noticed that Hawaiian music is very popular.
Oh, Friday morning.
Why is that?
Well, it just brings back Hawaii to everybody. So the Hawaiian Friday morning show is extremely popular at KKUP.
Just to mention real quickly that San Jose had some bit of history. I went on the computer and Googled in radio in San Jose, and I came up with this Bay Area Radio Museum, and it turns out that a gentleman by the name of Charles David Harold in 1910 was broadcasting out of the Garden City Bank Building in downtown San Jose, the very first programmed broadcast, long before the one that I think you listened to in Pittsburgh.
No, it was in Chicago area.
Chicago.
Yeah.
Yeah, so San Jose,
WGN.
again, you wonder how the heck Silicon Valley ever started. We had innovators way back then.
We sure did.
There's a plaque on the building, the bank building, commemorating
Really?
the first broadcast.
What's the name of the building?
I think it's the old Bank of America building.
Oh, the old Bank of America.
Used to be the tallest, building in the valley with the
weather,
green
weather lights on top.
Yeah.
Right.
Yes,
Right.
yes. Well, that's kind of interesting. Now, I understand there were several other alternative radio stations 38 years ago when you folks were operating that were in the South Bay. For example, KRVE in Los Gatos, KFAT in Gilroy.
Yeah.
Are they still in operation, Jim?
Well, I don't know much about the one you mentioned in Los Gatos, but KTAO is the one I listened to in Los Gatos, and wonderful alternative station. And I feel so guilty sometimes because I used to listen to it every morning, and I never subscribed.
You never,
and they
never
went off
paid
the
your
air on me.
dues, huh?
Now KFAT, that was a commercial station, and it was quite popular and pretty successful, but not successful enough.
KFAT, when it failed, you ended up using their antenna on top of Loma Prieta.
Actually, we got their space for the antenna. I think it's our own antenna, but we have their location.
Jim, would you like to talk about the kind of programming that you see happening, that you've done yourself personally at KKUP, which incidentally is 91.5 FM on the dial?
That's a good thing to remind them of.
Yes.
Yeah, well, Sharon and I do the Old Time Farm and Garden Show, which is, we have great guests, and we talk about urban horticulture, and I'm involved with that, and I go back to my youth in the 1950s, and We have an old-time rhythm and blues show on Saturday nights, and I do folk music one time a month. And I'm even involved with ska music. I don't know if you've heard of that.
How do you spell it?
SKA, and it's pre-reggae type music. Now, my son normally does the show, but I'm the backup DJ on that one, and I call myself the world's oldest living ska DJ.
Does your son play a musical instrument?
No, he doesn't, but he's a great announcer.
How did he get involved with ska? And reggae is, I think, of Caribbean.
Yeah.
Well, ska comes from Scandinavia, maybe?
No, actually, it's from Jamaica.
Jamaica.
And they listen to the rhythm and blues broadcasts from New Orleans and New York, I think, too. And they said, gee, that's a great thing to have. And so they started their own music, and it became ska, and then reggae.
Jim does another really tonight, we're taping today is Veterans Day.
That's right.
And Jim he does an old time.
The Catch-22 Veterans Day show, and it's
mostly
gripe songs of the service, but you sign up for another hitch, most of the songs.
Sure.
It's just unique. There's nothing quite like it on the radio.
How did you come to volunteer for alternative radio?
Oh, speaking of, you're in the Army now. No, it was kind of the program that I do with Jim, the Old Time Farm and Garden Show, which is the fourth Thursday of the month, was first produced by Dr. Craig Kalagi, and I knew Craig as a master gardener volunteer. And Craig would get great guests on, and he would have great topics. And Craig moved to Southern California, and the spot was open. And I guested on the show numerous times, and so Jim asked me if I'd like to come down and be part of his support group.
Yeah, it scared the heck out of me to do it without Craig, so I like to surround myself with talent.
So when Jim asked me to do that, I thought, well, this is cool, because I really enjoy doing the radio show.
Well, how did you know that you'd enjoy doing a radio show? It's the first time you did it.
Well, I had guest with Jim many times.
Okay. So.
And, you know, I became very aware early on that I didn't need to fix my hair. It didn't matter what I wore. You know, there was a whole lot of really great advantages to doing the radios. Sure. One thing that's helped me is it's opened my, I'm out of the box now. You know what I'm...
don't tell me more about that.
Well, it's like I can listen to ska music, and I can listen to all these alternative things that I never would have listened to before I came involved with a radio station.
Yes. Jim, after you volunteered at KKUP, what was it like to do your first solo program?
Oh, Bill, what an exhilarating experience. Now, I started as a relatively young man. I'm now in my 70s and a senior citizen.
Yeah.
But I went down to the station. I started up at 3:30 in the morning, and there was a bunch of characters in there. And I didn't have the kind of training that we give the announcers now, so I was a little shaky. And one of the fellows stayed with me for about a half an hour or so. And then when he left, it was just a tremendous feeling of power and just a wonderful feeling. And I went home, and normally I'm not used to getting up that early. I wasn't tired at all. I was just full of energy. And Sharon, I know, had a great time in her first show.
Yes.
It was a little, I didn't have time to worry about it because I knew Jim was training me so that he and his wife could go on a cruise. And so I knew that August I was going to be soloing. So I was, you know, getting all my ducks in a row. And in June, Jim and Dot went on another trip. I think they went to see their grandkids down south. And the man that was training me, Lars, was going to come and sit with me because you have to be approved by the FCC. There's lots of regulations about just, you don't just walk in and go on the show.
Right.
And Lars had been training me, and I'd been watching with Jim, and so I felt that I had a level of confidence, but I was waiting till August to do a solo. Well, about 2 minutes before we went on the air for my show in June, there's no Lars. So I get on the horn and I call Lars, and he said, oh, I totally forgot. And my car's in the shop. I don't know when I'm going to get down there. So it was like, I didn't have time to panic.
Yeah.
Because it was 10 o'clock. It was time to do a station announcement and get on with it. And I had two guests sitting there. So I just kind of said, well, guys, we're on our own. And I told the audience listening, I said, well, this is my first show by myself. We'll see what it'll be. And it worked out really good. But the beauty of it is I didn't have time. By the time August, it was all old stuff for me. So the training was really exceptional. They did a really good job. I got a binder with all the information. I was blessed because the evolution of the training has got to the point where you can take the training, you can sit at the board, and you have every confidence that you can handle it.
KKUP is 38 years on the air. When and why did the city of Cupertino become involved with the station when KKUP came into being?
Yeah.
Cupertino seems to get involved in a lot of different things. How did they get involved with KKUP?
Well, there was these young men. Dana Jang was one of them, and they worked at a little station in a school in Los Altos, I think it was. What was it? KPSR, I think the name of it was. And they became, I think they were high school students then. And then they became college students, and they were still at that little station, and then the school decided to give up their license. And so these college students got together and said, well, let's start our own station. We'll call it KKUP, KCUP. And so they started going through all the paperwork with the FCC. And they lived in Cupertino, so they wanted to be licensed in Cupertino. And so they started the Radio Club of Cupertino. And it took them a couple of years because they weren't an educational group, and so they got associated with the Assurances Science Foundation, I think it is. And they got the license right there in Cupertino, and the rest is history. They got a little house to put the equipment in for $1 a year.
Courtesy of the city of Cupertino. When and why did KKUP leave Cupertino?
Well, I don't know all the details on the lease of the place on Imperial Avenue, but there may have been some financial issues, and there was some technical issues, and so we decided to move the studio to Santa Clara, and but we're still licensed in Cupertino. So, and there were some issues of a technical nature.
Well, I understand that not only were you, FCC insisted you keep the licensing in Cupertino, but every hour on the hour, what do you say?
KKUP.
Cupertino.
There again.
Yes.
Cupertino, little town.
Yep.
In South Bay, and it's getting this pretty broad recognition on alternative radio.
Our listeners, because of where the tower is, we hit Hollister, all, Milpitas, that part of the
Monterey Bay.
Monterey Bay, San Jose. Doesn't go into Saratoga and Los Gatos much, but
well, it's because of the mountains.
The mountain.
My next question is, can you talk about the importance of having a direct line of sight from your station to Mount Loma Prieta, and how you did not have this when KKUP first broadcast from Cupertino?
Well, that was a big driver in the move to Santa Clara and now San Jose to get direct line of sight of the studio to the Mount Loma Prieta. And before we had tried the radio link and we were actually in the Monte Vista area of Cupertino, closer to the hills. So we didn't have a real clean look at the tower. And Mount Umnum was in the way a little bit. And so we didn't have a good clean signal. And so they tried the phone lines.
You're sending your radio signal out on AT&T phone lines.
Yeah. So we went back to the phone lines. Actually, the young men that started the station had phone lines. But it turns out that it was rather expensive and pretty noisy. And so the signal wasn't as good. So they all thought, well, it'd be much better to have a microwave link with direct line of sight, and that's what we got in the locations that we're in now.
Yeah, I guess 38 years ago they didn't have things like microwave antennas.
Well, 38 years ago they were playing records.
Oh, that's true. And we still play 45 RPM records on the 50 show.
Yeah, but it says it's 78 RPMs, the old shellac record.
I have actually played a 78 too. We usually use 45s and LPs.
That's wonderful. How do you pay for your operation? It's all volunteer, and how does that handled?
Well, every year we get a big raise, so we're volunteers,
They give you one of those chairs where you can like a barber chair, raise it up.
Bill, we're one of the few stations. There's quite a few stations that have volunteer announcers. I know of no station that has volunteer managers. And so I've assumed a lot of those jobs myself. Was once the program director, and they increased my pay by 3 times. I still made 0. We don't pay anybody at KKUP, and so that's a big help in keeping the cost out.
But you still have your lights, your facility expenses, you rent the facility.
Oh, yes,
The
sir.
maintenance of the equipment and so on.
Yeah.
So just out of curiosity, yeah, KKUP had an article in the Courier recently,
Yeah.
and they were talking about your budget, and I think the general manager was interviewed, and he said it's about $90,000 a year.
Right.
That's a lot of money.
Yeah, it is. But compared to the other alternative stations, and some of them are associated with colleges, their budget is much higher
Sure.
because of the paid announcers.
Yes.
But we have to pay ASCAP BMI to allow us to play the copyright material.
So you're talking about now going out
Yeah.
and knowingly playing copyright material. You have to go to the people who control the copyright
Exactly.
and get their permission, and then they send you a bill, and you
Yeah.
pay the bill.
We get a discounted rate, but it's still, you
Yes.
know, not cheap. And we have to pay Ma Bell, and we have to, electricity, PG&E.
And maintenance.
Oh,
People
yes.
come
And
in
the
and clean the
equipment is
station.
very expensive.
Yeah. And I do want to emphasize you are a nonprofit organization.
Oh, yeah.
Right. 501c3.
You know,
So we don't, we don't have commercials. We
That's
don't
wonderful. That's marvelous. Now, getting down to the touchy point, how do you pay for all this?
Yeah. Well, go ahead.
We have marathons,
A fund drive type of
fund
thing.
drive. Every couple of weeks we have a
Okay.
marathon. And
Okay.
Jim's wearing the shirt from the Oldies Marathon.
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
And
We have another shirt hanging right
Yeah.
here.
right, and we do the Oldies Marathon, and they do all kinds of different marathons.
Yeah.
What kind of response do you get from that?
Well, it can be huge. Several of them, the blues and the bluegrass country and folk marathon.
How about Hawaiian music?
Oh, when the Hawaiians, see, they're part of the Oldies Marathon, and they are the big fundraisers. You know, they beat us in the, playing the old 50s music like quite a ways because they have such a dedicated following.
Yeah.
But it's a subscriber that keeps KKUP going.
Exactly.
Okay.
And it's not underwriting. We're allowed to have underwriting, but we don't
Understand
have it.
So
we
we-
don't have grants or anything like that.
They can take gifts from other
Yeah, we can
organizations,
take gifts.
Donations,
but no
yes.
grants. They don't apply for grants. KKUP is, and I hate to, since we just finished this election, beholden to no one.
That sounds
We're
Because-
not part of NPR either.
Yeah, not
That's
part
even
of
better.
NPR.
After
So
they
their
lose.
their money comes from the people that listen to it, not from
Sure.
Yeah.
And
commercial
that- the
entities
fact-
or politicians or
Yeah,
anything.
the fact that you can cover 90,000 with your fund drive and so on, you can identify the fact that you do have a lot of listeners out there. That's very, very good.
38 years worth of.
Jim, I'm going to ask you to talk about, for example, special programming that you offer now. You do Veterans Day, St. Patrick's Day, Thanksgiving, a thing called the Sea Shanty, and of course food music. I wonder what food music is.
Well, tune in and just before Thanksgiving, and I play songs about good food, bad food.
Turkey in the straw, by any chance?
Even turkey in the straw, but you might even hear Hannibal Lecter talk about some of his.
That's funny.
I mean, it's kind of a bizarre show, but it's interesting,
Well,
and people
it-
listen to it.
And then you do have spring shows like Master Gardener Show and the Spring Garden Market Show. What is a Spring Garden Market?
Well, the Master Gardeners do a show. We call the Master Gardeners are a lot of our resources for the home and garden, the garden show that Jim and I do. And the Master Gardeners come and they talk about their spring garden market and what they're going to be selling and who their vendors are. And so that becomes a show all around that particular event because it is such a big event in the Valley.
Yes.
And we do a lot of educational on our show. We'll have speakers in. We had a gentleman from the Dahlia Society come in and talk. We had people from, we had the squash guy come in the other day.
Oh, we sure did.
And it was great.
Squash
By
guy.
Anikia.
Yeah,
Yeah, he's a squash expert.
So, I mean, he grows all these different kinds of pumpkins.
Is there a living in being a squash?
Apparently there is.
Yeah.
And so the garden show, we focus on education and outreach and promoting events.
Sure, local.
Our City Forest, the Master Gardeners, Prush Park, all, lots of different organizations as far as giving them a voice.
And
in our
once
community.
a year, too, we have a mushroom show.
Yes.
Of course.
And so we promote the Fungus Fair over in Santa Cruz in the second weekend of January.
Well, tell us about your recent trip up to Oregon searching for fungi.
Well, yeah, I was up there, getting a leg up on California and getting the chanterelles and the porcinis and the lobster mushrooms up there.
I think we've already done a program with.
Oh yeah, we did one some years ago.
Yeah.
So. Very, very delicate thing to go out and pick the right one.
I'm a forager.
One of the shows that we always have a lot of fun is the show right before Christmas.
Oh, yes.
And that's the invasion of the Master Gardeners. And so
the invasion of the Master Gardeners.
That's what we call it, yeah.
I think I saw that movie sometime.
And so we have a bunch of Master Gardeners come in, and we just get dozens and dozens of people calling with questions about winter crops or just off-the-wall stuff. So
and we sing songs, and it's great. A lot of fun.
Craig used to always sing Christmas carols. He has an incredible voice, and so.
Yeah.
I noticed that when they were broadcasting back in 1910, they talked about the Garden City. So San Jose must have been called the Garden City then. And of course, we all know that before Silicon Valley, it was the Valley of Heart's Delight.
Exactly. I'm glad you brought
all
that
the
up.
orchards. And this is why. Unlike, for example, I grew up in New York City, and I couldn't imagine a station like yours existing with people being interested in spring garden markets and so on. It's wonderful that the people that we have, the population we have here in the Valley are very oriented towards nature and what the Valley has to offer.
Well, this show that you do, The Better Part, is very, it supports our communities. It gives a voice to smaller organizations or entities or really cool things that are going on that otherwise just a small niche of people know. And I think at KKUP we try to replicate in many ways what you guys do, only on just an audio level.
Right.
Does that make sense? And so.
And I'm a senior citizen, so we have quite a few of those too.
Yeah. Well, it's every little bit.
Not Sharon, not Sharon.
I'm in March.
And then volunteers. I guess it's a wonderful place, and we want to be sure that if a viewer is watching this program and they found out that you two came in and volunteered and you were nervous the first time around, that it's very possible that you might pick up some new volunteers. How would they reach you if they wanted to?
Sure. Well, I think one of the best ways is to go to the website.
What is the website?
www.kkup.org or, the w's.kkup.org. And it tells everything about KKUP, including the history and the schedules and who to contact. Okay. Or they can just call up any of our announcers during any of our shows. Now, we don't have a trained office, management there.
Receptionist.
But the announcer will take the name, he'll give it to the program director, and the program director will probably email the individual or call them and how to get involved with KKUP. And there's a process.
What is the phone number that they would use to reach you?
Yeah, we have two. 408, we have 260-2999, and then on the other side of the hill in the 831 area, it's 255-2999.
Okay, the 831 is the other side of the hill being Santa Cruz?
Right,
Wonderful.
Monterey Bay. We
Wonderful.
come in great over there.
Wonderful. I think you pretty well covered most of the information about KKB. Is there any last thoughts you'd like to leave with our viewers?
Well, I think that the best thing you can do is listen to the station, 91.5 FM. If you hear something you like, and I think you will, tell your friends. Because if we can expand our listening audience through word of mouth, maybe a bumper sticker, that's how we will keep going. And it will avoid the situation that happened to KTAO when you tune it up one morning and it's gone. We won't have that.
And that was the regret you had for never having supported them.
I really loved the station, and I didn't subscribe.
Yeah.
It's such an easy thing to do, for what we give to the community. And I have to tell you, these are really great people to volunteer with. I volunteer with a lot of organizations, and I have never met a volunteer I didn't like with any of the organizations.
Now, that speaks well.
It really does. I think people that volunteer do it from the heart. We're obviously not doing it for the pay.
That's right.
And
Right.
they just, great people. You come in, they make you feel welcome. They'll call you with ideas for a show, or here, I left you some music to try, and that kind of stuff.
That's a good point. I've had people suggest music or topics, and we use that.
Yeah, we're pretty much the same way. The better part. We thrive on input. Yeah. Well,
And so if somebody listens in and they hear something they don't like, I don't like ska music. Don't turn it off forever.
yeah.
Turn it on 2 hours later or the next day, because the programming changes.
You could hear
really
jazz,
Yeah.
classical.
The blues,
You got
is
it.
just
It's-
incredible.
Take a look at our website.
And this is on your website.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, that's very
And I'm
important.
glad you spotted Alan Watts.
Well, he
That's
was
a
a
friend of
great
mine. I
friend of
trained that
mine.
guy that's on there
Did you?
to produce that show.
Wonderful. Well, listen, I must admit that I'll become a new listener to 91.5 FM on the dial. I normally am into C-SPAN video stuff because of the better part, but I'll make it a point, and I do want to go visit your station
Absolutely.
and see how it all comes together. Sharon, I want to thank you particularly for coming in, and Jim also particularly, and also acknowledge the fact that both of you were at our celebration for our 1,000th program on
Well, that
October
was
25th.
wonderful.
It was a great
Glad you had a
celebration.
good time. Thank you for being here today.
Very
Okay,
welcome.
well, thank you for inviting us.
Thank you for joining us. We hope that you have found today's program both informative and interesting. If you would like to suggest a topic or a guest for the better part, you can always reach us at the Cupertino Senior Center. The number there is 408-777-3150. You can learn more about us and order a copy of this program or one of the many programs that we've done by visiting our website. The website address is www.thebetterpart.com. The Better Part has many of its programs available through the Santa Clara County Library System. And the Better Part has selected programs also on YouTube. Thanks again for watching. See you next week.